On my wedding day, I watched, stone cold, while my brand new mother-in-law and her son, my groom, clung to each other. Dolores sobbed until her voice cracked. Refusing to let go, I snatched the microphone from the officiant. Come on, everyone, let's wish the happy couple a lifetime together and babies soon. How idiotically blind had I been to discover, mid-ceremony, that I just married a mama's boy. Each time I replay the scene, I want to face slap myself. 6 whirlwind months with Ethan and I'd march straight down the aisle. We met on a blind date. For half a year he doted on me and my parents, polishing his Mr. Perfect halo until every aunt and cousin swore I'd be insane not to lock him down. Society had a simpler label. 30-something single woman labeled as a leftover. Ethan, the fabled hero who would rescue me from the bridge club gossip mill. 6 months earlier my parents presented him as my next blind date. Dad's opening line, refuse and you can find yourself another father. I'd pleaded that my career was on the up. If I nailed the next 2 campaigns I'd be named Sterling's youngest GM. No one cared. Why chase titles? Marry, have babies, stay home. A girl flaunting herself in conference rooms. Disgraceful. Your job is warming the nest. The lectures bored holes in my eardrums. I left the office at 10, drove to the high-end restaurant, and found the table roses drooping from the long wait. Yet the leading man sat calm, smiling at his phone, never once texting. Where are you? Sorry. Crazy deadline. I bolted the minute I logged off. No worries. That single sentence skyrocketed him in my book. No colleague or ex had waited so graciously. When we became official, Ethan still trotted out clumsy flirtation, always tacking on. Mom says, before slamming the brakes. Mom says burgundy ages women your age. Mom says after the wedding she'll move in and help care for you. Mom says girls don't need careers. I'll provide. I shrugged these off as filial devotion, never spotting the red flags. What melted me most was his supposed respect. No wandering hands. No sulks when I worked late, as though desire never touched him. One dinner with both sets of parents later. The engagement was boxed and ribboned. Come on, everyone, let's wish the happy couple a lifetime together and babies soon. At my words the buzzing chapel fell mute except for Dolores's hiccuping sobs. Only when silence chilled his ears did Ethan peel his mother off. Her knees buckled and she collapsed back into his arms. I stepped forward. I've taken first aid, let me check her. Ethan blocked me with an outstretched arm. Move. Please. I trained for this. Maybe my tone carried medical magic. Dolores fluttered awake. Guests laughed the moment off. Only Dolores, now behind me, shot dagger glares, scratch that. Full volleys, at my back. Sometimes I swear mirrors don't exist for her. Right, eat, drink. The wilder the reception, the sweeter the marriage, she crowed. I caught her winking at the local neighborhood aunties. Here it came, wedding hazing. Ethan's folks were from rural Riverdale Township, Ohio. I'd assumed the custom had died out. City wedding, classy send-off, so I'd thought. Instead, I faced a siege. Burly dudes guzzled beer while drooling over my bridesmaids. Their stares slimy. I threw a pleading look at Ethan. He answered, Mom means well. Disgust curdled my stomach. One clan, one cesspool. I snatched a chair and planted myself in front of my girls. Try me and bleed, my posture said, and the herd hesitated. Relax. It's just a chick. What's she gonna do? The first mover lunged. The rest swarmed. Circle of men. Eyes bloodshot with booze and lust. Hands grabbing. I couldn't breathe for rage. I raised the chair higher, but Ethan seized my arm. Chill. They're buddies joking around. Joke your mother. Eyes burning. I shook him off, bolted to the kitchen, and returned with an 8-inch chef's scissors. That was when sirens flooded the lawn. The officers looked unsurprised. Routine Saturday night in township files. Procedure shuttled us to Riverdale Township Police Department. Since no one bled, the hazers got 48 hours in lockup and walked. Back at Sterling Manor, I spilled everything. My mild-tempered father smashed his bourbon glass. Poor glass. Martyred over scum. I was mourning it when my phone rang. Great. Capitalist overtime, I thought, but the screen flashed forward. Hey, just saw your wedding clip on Twitter. You okay? Clip. I hadn't noticed anyone uploading. After brushing off my billionaire boss, I opened the app. Trending. Hashtag bride toasts mother son couple at altar. Hashtag wedding hazing gropers should rot in hell. Hashtag mama's boys exit planet Earth. I retweeted everything to my Maplewood Estates neighborhood group. The complex runs on gossip. Ethan would be public enemy #1 by sunset. From incident to now, total calls from Ethan, 0. WhatsApp yielded only, Luna. Grow up. Your stunt jailed our friends and disgraced the family. Tell police it was playful and bail them out. Married yesterday. Exposed today. How efficient. Thank God we'd postponed the marriage license. Grace's earlier whisper echoed, sis. No rush down the aisle. Look twice before you leap. A chill crawled along my spine. Grace is Ethan's real little sister. Petite and married off early. According to Ethan, she lives a blissful life. The obedient kind who still slips cash to her birth family. Yet every time I look at her I see nothing but sorrow in her eyes. A few days before the wedding she came to Sterling specifically to find me and delivered the whole marriage is a grave monologue. She must have been hinting that her brother is no prize. But I missed the subtext entirely. I typed out a WhatsApp, sis. Thanks for the heads up the other day. If you're free I'd love to take you to dinner. No reply came back. I was about to send something to soften the awkwardness when Ethan's call barged in. Luna, when are you coming home? Mom and I haven't eaten. Ethan, so before you married me you two survived on air? The rebuke stung. I heard his pout forming. Before he could fire back his mother snatched the phone. You wretched girl. Now that you're a Vance wife you live by our rules. Get back here and cook. If you're waiting for me you might as well buy 2 coffins and climb in now. I hung up on the string of curses and enjoyed a peaceful week plus. Then, one evening after work, I found Ethan standing outside my condo clutching shopping bags. Face pitiful. A knot of retired neighbors had already gathered. Tongues wagging. What's wrong with the Sterlings? He's still their son-in-law. Why lock him out? Oh honey, you didn't see him let the bridesmaids get groped at the reception. Couples fight. They make up. Elders should think twice before they freeze the kid out. Looks awful. Huh. Great theater. He timed it for dusk when Maplewood's courtyards are packed. Look pitiful enough and public opinion flips. Clearly the ploy was working to stop the rumor mill before it revved any faster. I marched him straight out of the complex. What do you want? Without his mother around Ethan can still fake decency. At least he looks human. Luna, these are the supplements Mom bought for your parents. Really pricey. Please take them. No favors for free. Out with it. My stare could have filleted him. Too bad eyeballs don't kill. Recalling that smug sense of entitlement still turns my stomach. Luna, shouldn't the dowry money you received go toward the mortgage first? We're one family now. We need a good life together, right? Also, when do we file the marriage license? We've had the banquet but no certificate. Awkward. Talk about rotten luck. First boyfriend ever, and he's a mama's boy whose abacus clicks loud enough to wake the dead. Fine, slow play is the only way to enjoy this kind of game. By now Maplewood gossip on him and Dolores had thinned to a weak broth. His daily pilgrimages, gift bags in hand, had finally scrubbed the wedding scandal from the neighborhood conscience. Listen to mommy, the chorus said. Nothing wrong with that. Hilarious? Should we let mommy sleep in the middle of our bed too? We don't even live together yet, but once we do I'm sure the joke will turn real. To avoid future accusations of looting their precious supplements, I pulled out my phone, found a discount seller on Facebook Marketplace, and ordered cheap but fancy-looking tonics and skincare, telling the owner to issue a receipt. When the slip showed $20,000, I almost laughed out loud. That single sheet outweighed every item Ethan had lugged over. Hoisting the shopping bags, I strutted into the Vance compound and realized he might be a classic gold digger. I'm my parents' only child, and some families still dream of swallowing an only daughter inheritance whole. Their complex is low rent. The unit is a cramped studio they've rented for 6 months. I'm all career and had never set foot here, so I'd missed the obvious. They never planned to stay long. The new house with a mortgage, he kept mentioning. I'd never seen it, and now I wondered if it even existed. I had trusted him completely, only to discover the one thing he lacks is character. Blame trending for making half the complex recognize me on sight, though this was my first physical visit. Oh, little Vance. Couples quarrel and cuddle. Let bygones be bygones. Everyone pushed the same reconciliation script. Easy to talk when it isn't your skin in the game. Exactly. Folks, I'm here with presents for my mother-in-law. I flashed a saccharine grin and lifted the bags high, so the receipt clipped to the side would flutter in full view. When I overheard $2,000 for one tonic. Rich wife indeed. I knew mission accomplished. Humans gossip on instinct. I snapped a pic of the invoice for evidence. If gifts ever become a court case, receipts plus witnesses equal slam dunk. To speed things up, I egged a nearby auntie into posting my gift bag photo to the neighborhood group chat, with the price tag impossible to miss. 3 minutes later Ethan rang, no doubt to scold me. I let it go to voicemail. I shoved the bags at Dolores and left. Indescribable feeling. Her face glowed with greasy flattery until she spotted the numbers, then she started pushing Ethan and me back together. On my way to Sterling, I cut past a hedge and heard a girl scream. Without thinking, I grabbed a rock, hit screen record, and sprinted in. Domestic violence? Broad daylight on a side street. He dared to punch her in public. No telling what happened behind closed doors. Crowds drifted by, but no one answered her shrieks. Beat it. Keep going, and I'm calling Riverdale Township Police. I'm short. Even with a rock, I look harmless. Bitch. Mind your own. Cops call it family business. He let go of her and stalked toward me. My knees rattled, but logic screamed, if I run, she'll pay twice over. Just as I was ready to swing a rock with my life on the line, my boss came out of nowhere. He looked every inch the controlling CEO. One flick of his wrist and a clutch of black-suited bodyguards charged in. He sprinted off, cursing over his shoulder. Wait till I get home, you're dead. The thick glob of spit he left on the sidewalk almost made me puke. I helped the girl he'd been beating to her feet, and froze. It was Grace. Relief flooded me. Thank God I'd taken this detour. After my last unanswered text to her, I'd let the matter drift to the back of my mind. I never expected our reunion would look like this. I stayed silent, afraid I'd embarrass her. I simply crouched, offered my hand, and let the gesture say I'd stand guard. Her face was a patchwork of bruises, yet she only stared at me calmly. Grace always wore foundation. Now I knew it was war paint over wounds. In that instant, I understood the sorrow that lived in her eyes. One person is a whisper, but a chorus can roar. A dam cracks from a single ant tunnel. My strength is small, but the combined fury of every woman who's ever seen herself in Grace can topple the brute who did this. After I walked my boss out, I took Grace home. Mom and Dad said nothing, just told me to look after her. Luckily, Grace isn't the delusional type. She never whimpered. He only hits me because he loves me. Why doesn't he hit other women? Once she was settled, I pixelated her face, dropped the video on Twitter, and bought a promoted trend slot. I asked an author friend to turn the footage into a short story and post it online. Within hours, the internet split into trenches. One camp wanted Zane's head on a platter. The other played peacemaker. Some trolls turned their guns on me, shrieking that family laundry should stay in the basket. Cute. As if I'd hit publish without Grace's consent. We'd barely enjoyed 2 quiet days when Ethan called and torched my mood. Where have you stashed my sister? Send her back or we'll have you arrested for kidnapping. Word was Zane, lacking anyone to punch, had started snatching stray pets off the street and torturing them. Someone called the cops. He spent a night in a cage, walked free, and immediately hounded Ethan for Grace. At first Ethan and Dolores blew him off, but when Zane threatened to yank back the dowry money and file for divorce, Ethan panicked. Grace had been miserable since kindergarten, a son-worshipping mom, a doormat dad, 2 parents who saw her as a ticket to fund their boy's future. She asked me more than once, if they never loved me, why did they have me? Ethan had already given me the answer. A broken condom, a shady ultrasound that promised a boy, and here she was. The day she turned 18, they married her off to bankroll Ethan's wedding. Even her phone was bugged. She lived in a glass cage. Yet when I announced I'd marry her brother, she still warned me to think twice. In her words, I've been drenched, so I always keep an umbrella ready for the next girl. I didn't think Ethan would actually call 911. I rushed home after Mom's SOS. Ethan grabbed Grace by the wrist, yanking her toward the door. Why can't you act your age? You're a married woman. Where he goes, you go. Keep it in the family. No need for a circus. I laughed in his face. Inside the family? You mean settle it with fists? When I told the officers the girl in the viral clip was standing right here, the pieces clicked. Ethan's genius kidnapping accusation collapsed. One word from Grace and the lie combusted. Desperate men tell desperate tales. Let dogs bite dogs. It's the best show in town. To catch every frame, I ordered a drone off eBay for airborne close-ups. Ethan's tidy commute became a spy thriller. Zane tailing him. Ethan detouring. Sometimes Uber hopping home. You've got to admit, the guy has flashes of IQ. So far Zane still hasn't sniffed out the address. He can only trail. Ethan knows the dance can't go on. So one evening he shows up with gift bags. He and Dolores want to move in with us. Luna, you love me, right? Grace is Zane's legal wife. How can she squat at your place without papers? Oh, so moving you in makes it our house. But Grace stays a guest. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Dolores jumped in, frantic. No one has ever talked to my boy like that. You're just his fiancé. Know your rank. Spoiled Failed son, discarded daughter, like mother, like children, not happening, be gone by sunset or I'll personally toss you out. Seeing my stone-cold face, they slunk away. I wonder how frostbitten Grace must feel, her own home barred to her. Years of swallowed pain and not a single ear to hear them. Meanwhile Zane served Ethan a final ultimatum, produce Grace or return the dowry money. Ethan is broke, so he's circling back to me. At least he's evolved enough not to demand cash outright. He invited me on a weekend getaway to Chicago. Distance from Zane plus fingers crossed that my inner doormat awakens. I said yes. I'm betting the trip will hand me footage gold. In Chicago, Mom texts that Grace followed us. She's terrified I'll get hurt. Silly girl. She can't shield herself yet wants to shield me. Still, she's my pocket sunshine. The spark that keeps me slugging it out with Ethan. I was bracing for a headache over separate rooms when Ethan handed me the perfect excuse. He needs his space. The front desk gives us adjacent doubles. Grace bunked with me. He flew solo. At dinner an unwelcome ghost breezed in. My boss, Ford. I had to admit the man was ridiculously handsome, but even that couldn't disguise the fact that he was still a card-carrying capitalist vampire. I figured ignoring him would be rude, so I gave him a polite nod. Consider that my greeting. He ignored me completely and walked straight to the elevator. Fine. Perfect. Actually, at the table Ethan didn't bring up anything awkward. It felt exactly like the weeks before we were supposed to get married. Clearly, then and now, every tactic came straight from Dolores's playbook. I wanted to finish quickly so I could take something back for Grace, so I lied and said I was stuffed. You're full, yet you're asking for a to-go box? None of your damn business. I might get hungry later. Anyone with ears could tell it was an excuse. And Ethan didn't try to stop me. Back in the room I was mapping out our next moves with Grace when unmistakable noises started leaking through the wall. Not a big deal, except the room next door was Ethan's. Lucky for me, I'd brought the drone I'd bought. My hands were shaking when I launched it. Evidence on a silver platter. Two guys, plain as day. Ethan was on the bottom. Maybe they were chasing a thrill. Maybe they were just careless. But they hadn't pulled the curtains. Gave me the perfect shot. I recorded a short clip, then reeled the drone back before they noticed. Grace looked just as stunned. Apparently, her brother had hidden the fact that he's gay incredibly well. With this, the Van Cess were officially looking at marriage fraud. I'd planned to cut the trip short once I had the footage. But then Ford texted me from Chicago, his hometown and the seat of Sterling Corporate. Want me to teach him a lesson? If he handled Ethan and it blew up, there'd be nothing anyone could do to him on his own turf. I was tempted. The second I typed yes, all I could picture was the groping mob at our would-be wedding. The guy I'd trusted had turned out to be an animal. Next morning Ethan showed up in the lobby bruised and swollen, and half the hotel was fighting laughter. He whined that someone had thrown sacks over his and his friends' heads and beaten them. Of course he left out the part about the other guy getting hit. He didn't know I'd taken a swing myself. Felt amazing. I only stopped because Grace looked shaken. Otherwise I'd have beaten the trash to a pulp. Probably reminded her of her own nightmare. Men who hit women are the lowest cowards. Then we got more good news. Zane had smacked Dolores around. A 2-for-1 beatdown. The moment Ethan heard, he rushed home. So one bruised winner became a matching pair. Luna, if you hadn't taken Grace, Zane wouldn't have hit me. This is your fault. So you have to take care of Mom and me. Dolores lectured me like it was obvious. Another attempted guilt trip. But I keep my morals in airplane mode around these two. Hitting people is illegal. Mom, let's call the cops. I put on my best do-gooder face and pulled out my phone. Dolores panicked. The last thing she wanted was Zane angry again. Mom, he hit you and you still call him family? What you've suffered isn't 1/10 of what Grace endured. Selling your daughter to fund your son's wedding. I suddenly wondered whether Dolores knew Ethan was gay. No way was I letting them move back in. They seemed to have struck some deal with Zane. Because life stayed quiet. Aside from Ethan hounding me to go get the marriage license. Once I realized he was gay, I hired a private investigator. The guy is Ethan's boss. They met in the cafe where he and I had our first blind date. Probably hooked up while he was waiting for me. No wonder he swore he'd climb the corporate ladder. His lover was the ladder. All I had to do, supposedly, was baby him and his mother. But self-reliance beats any safety net. Thank heavens my parents raised me to think for myself instead of swooning at the first guy who shows up with flowers. I now have a full dossier on Ethan and his boss, meetings, hiring, dating, every sordid video. Still, I'm not ready to blow the whistle. Grace is living with me. Once I file, I lose the excuse to keep her here. I still don't know what deal they struck to keep Zane quiet. Grace hasn't left the house in days. That can't go on. I was wondering when I could swing by Riverdale to ask about the medical report I'd submitted when Officer Wong called. Zane had marched to the station, Ethan and Dolores in tow, claiming I'd kidnapped his wife. They weren't divorced yet, Grace had never found the courage to file, so the case had stalled. The other side beat us to the punch. If I don't see my wife today, I'm pressing charges. Zane sat with legs crossed, totally relaxed. He assumed I was powerless. He was wrong. Grace wasn't that frightened girl anymore. For 20 plus years she'd obeyed because parents gave me life. That obedience bought her a ruined future. Tell us, what were you planning to do when you saw me? Hit me? I wasn't surprised she'd shown up. Zane had WhatsApp threatened her on the way, and her reply, "Go ahead, call the cops. Let's see who they arrest," practically glowed on the screen. I'm done running. Running never helps. I want to shout it. Victims aren't guilty. They aren't shameful. The abuser is. I'm not only divorcing him, I'm pressing charges for domestic violence. Society loves to aim the knife at the wounded. That whole, she asked for it, garbage is just an excuse scumbags use. Grace's divorce was finalized more than 2 weeks ago. Fortunately, her medical report had reached Riverdale early, and the minute she appeared in person Zane's position collapsed. He stalled at first, demanding the dowry money back. So Grace countersued. The outcome was pure catharsis. Every dollar of post-marital property was awarded to Grace. Zane had assumed she could never leave him and therefore never bothered with a prenuptial agreement. The case landed on every major network, beaming silent courage into the living rooms of women trapped in the same nightmare. Apologies that arrive after the bruises. Always the same script, I'm sorry, but I'll hit you again tomorrow. Especially for housewives, women who once let themselves be sweet-talked into quitting jobs to stay home and keep the peace. A home that was supposed to shelter became a boxing ring where the husband punched down the stress he picked up on the street. Finally, gathering evidence and filing for divorce is a giant leap forward. Grace came to say goodbye. A few days ago, she's off to see the country. She wants rivers and mountains to rinse the past from her eyes. The first half of her life belonged to her birth family. The second will belong only to her. Me, I'm still your dutiful wage slave. And promotion season is here. The Wong account is my make or break deal. It will decide whether the word general ever gets glued to my title. Lately I sleep at Sterling more than I sleep at home. I've triple checked every slide so the client can't look away. Maybe exhaustion is playing tricks, because I keep catching my name in the hallway gossip. Who knew our future GM had that in her? I'd stepped into the coffee alcove for fuel when I walked straight into the remark. The speaker didn't even flinch, as if I were the one who'd splashed mud on his shoes. I brushed it off as rumor until I sat across from Wong. I handed him the contract with a respectful smile while my deck glowed on the projector. Sterling, partnerships are built on trust, he said. A senior VP who stiffs people on Venmo. Hard to keep talking. The words hit like a muffled grenade. All I heard was deadbeat. You haven't seen the email. Half the city has. He slid me the printout, a collage of my venomous replies to Ethan, intercut with screenshots of the dowry money. To anyone outside the loop it screamed gold digger. Ethan's lines read like tender concern. Mine read like open palm extortion. Even slumped on my own couch the whole thing felt unreal. Ethan had marched straight into Sterling's lobby. I'd ignored him and Dolores for weeks. Apparently their limit for good behavior is 7 days flat. If he's that desperate for the dowry, fine, he can whistle for it. The money's already winter coats and textbooks for underprivileged kids in the Appalachian Mountains. After the principal's story hit the feeds, donating felt like breathing. Teachers and children that remote deserve every ray of warmth my check can buy. Once my pulse leveled out, I opened the evidence folder. Wedding hazing clips from Twitter. The video of him dragging Grace back to her abuser. The grainy motel footage of him climbing out of his boss's bed. I stitched the ugliest minutes into a 90-second clip. If this montage doesn't bury Ethan, I have only my soft heart to blame. Ford looped the video on downtown Chicago billboards all night. Within hours Ethan was America's favorite punching bag. Dolores shared the spotlight when I sat opposite Wong a second time. A lunatic waving a paring knife burst through the door. You ruined my life, he howled. Security hauled him off to Riverdale in under a minute. Ethan, if you and your mommy, sorry, stepmommy, hadn't schemed against me and every other girl in your rotation, your life would still be intact. The online sleuths went medieval once the clip dropped. Turns out Dolores isn't his biological mother, she's the stepmom who crawled into his bed years ago. Ethan was the victim at first. The abuse flipped his compass. Women terrify him now. To cloak the incestuous relationship, Dolores paraded him through blind date after blind date, polishing his a gentle boy a gloss until some sucker bit. I was the unlucky fish, also the one with teeth. The mess snowballed beyond my game plan. Dolores sued for the dowry. The court ruled no refund. The verdict triggered an online riot, so I printed the charity receipt and taped it to Sterling's front doors. That shut them up. Today my title plate finally reads General Manager. Ford cornered me in the elevator, cheeks blotched red, demanding one honest chance. I'd seen that hunger in his eyes seasons ago, Neither of us had dared to speak. No more near misses. On her trip, Grace met a man who matches her vibe and her values. She says she's willing to roll the dice on love one more time. As for Ethan and Dolores, they're cellmates now. Done in by marriage fraud. They'd planned to skip town together. Ethan sold her out for a lighter sentence. Fat chance. Cops found him on his knees begging his former boss for shelter. Ethan's father collapsed from shame and checked into the hospital. A hired caregiver feeds him lunch. Maybe he regrets the decades he looked away while his daughter took the hits. Regret won't buy him a visitor. So, no rushing life. Careers ripen. Lovers find you. Everything arrives when it's ripe. Thanks for listening. If you liked the story, hit like and share it forward. Drop your thoughts below. Subscribe for the next ride. See you in the next episode.